Hello, my name is Dick Fleming, and during the Vietnam War I was a member of Recon Battalion and a scout for 1st Force Recon. I tell my stories in a book called Chasing Charlie, which is available on Amazon. And I also have a website called firstforcerecon.com where I link to other resources, and there's some photographs out there that either I took or people have sent me over the years. You may also be interested in using my playlist where I sequence my videos in chronological order from when I first arrived in Vietnam till my last flight out of country, and even some commentaries about what happened to me afterward. So that's I'd recommend that playlist. I think it ties things together, and if you just went in willy-nilly. So the mission I'm going to tell you about today started out as just another standard intelligence gathering mission. We were hoping to set up an observation post on this small hill overlooking the river, to see if there's any traffic on the river, and also to observe any enemy movement along that an area nearby. And according to the map, the entire area was fairly low. It had been bisected by the river, and it was low. And when we were inserted in, we found that the ground was actually very marshy, and we of course wanted to get out of the swampy area as quickly as possible. No one likes walking through the mud. And there wasn't much cover in that area, that swamp where we were originally inserted either. So we kept on trying to the best we could when we move to higher ground. And there seemed to be an area that rose up on either, with a swamp on either side, and we were following that, and eventually that turned into a trail. So someone else beside us was using that trail. Normally we didn't move on the trails. We like to stay away from them because we wanted to avoid enemy contact. We were the ghosts of the jungle, so to speak. We weren't trying to engage the enemy if we didn't have to. Some teams that like to move on the trails and actively engaged, the enemy, went looking for trouble, but it wasn't our mission. And in most cases, our sergeants and even the few lieutenants that we had didn't want to attract attention to ourselves. That wasn't our mission. If we could use artillery, or we call in airstrikes perhaps, and we'd fight if we had to. But our mission was to gather intelligence, to find out what troop movement there was in the area, how many North Vietnamese, what were they carrying, what were their weapons, what were their uniforms, where were they moving. That was our mission. That was 1st Force Recon's primary mission. Conducting raids and was secondary. But we were always on the lookout for prisoners. If we could snatch a prisoner, that was the best source of information you could get. So we were always looking for opportunities to do a prisoner snatch if we could. Well, anyway, we were moving along this trail, and the ground sort of sloped away into the swamp on either side of the trail, and we didn't know where it was leading. And it was getting dark, and we were moving along there for quite a while, and it was getting dark, and we were looking for a place where we could stay the night. Well, we couldn't stay on the trail. We couldn't just bivouac there in the middle of the trail. And on either side was a swamp, this quite large swamp on both sides of that little embankment that raised up that we were following. So we kept pushing on, and it gradually got dark, and we still hadn't found a place where we could stay the night. And then finally, after moving for quite a while, the ground opened up, and we saw a brush pile down to our right. It looked like we could burrow in there and stay in there out of observation. You know, so, and it was quite a ways from the trail. I mean, it was at least 300 or 400 feet from the trail. So even if anybody walking along the trail, you know, that was a good spot for us, and we could observe somebody walking along the trail and maybe do a prisoner snatch if we saw someone. So we bivouacked in that area. We set up our defensive perimeter, and we had laid out our brown cloth there, and we spent the night. And in the morning, we were awakened by this rooster calling, "Cock-a-doodle-doo, cock-a-doodle-doo." Well, you know, where did he come from, right? Pretty loud, you know. So we crawled up there and carefully tried to see what was going on, and we saw this area that had been set up to hold chickens. There were a number of chickens in there. The chicken coop, small chicken coop with, instead of wire, they had used brush and tied everything together with vines, and it was nice. They had maybe a couple dozen chickens in there, and they were all clucking away. So what in the world? We found, what is this? And in the distance, we saw some buildings. We had almost walked right into the center of an NVA base camp. You know, it was in the middle, you know, in the middle of the night. If we would have followed that path, we would have gone right into their small parade ground that they had. Well, this was something, you know. We didn't know whether we should get out of there or, you know, what we should do. You know, the lieutenant suggested, you know, we observe. It's what we were there for. We were going to observe. So we moved very carefully a little bit closer, and they had 2 or 3 huts set up. They had a little bigger area and a flagpole with a flag on top. And Thurman looked at that flag, and he goes, "We're going to get that flag. We're going to get that flag." I go, no, we're not going to get the we're not going to get the flag. Just calm down. You know, he was going. He wanted to get that flag. I could tell he was still thinking about it. And on the right hand side, there was a little cleared area in the center, where maybe where the flag was. You know, and there was a little cleared area, and then there was another open hutch there, just covered with straw, but they had a table on it, and I guess they used that to you know, hold, you know, describe their missions or do something, or maybe even eat. I don't know what they used it for, because there wasn't anybody around. There were no soldiers. There didn't seem to be any soldiers around, and it was still very early morning. And we continued to observe. You know, we heard some mama-san yelling from inside the hooch, and she's yelling something at someone. And then this old papa-san comes out, and he very slowly makes his way over to this fire pit that was in front of their hutch there, and he starts making a fire, chopping up wood and making a fire. And she's still yelling at him from inside the hutch there. And then a little bit later, this kid comes out. He must have been about 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. He had a basket, and he makes his way over to the chicken coop there, and he gathered some eggs, I guess, and he came on back. And we're looking at all this, you know. where are the soldiers? And sure enough, out of one of the other hutches right next to that, you know, some soldiers come out. Two soldiers, you know, they were dressed in khaki. They seemed to be soldiers. They weren't wearing any helmet or anything, and they didn't have any weapons on them. And there were only two of them. And you know, they went back in the hutch again, and you know, you still hear the mama-san yelling in the distance there. And the kid comes back, you know, with his basket, which I assume were full of eggs, and the old man took the eggs, and finally the mama-san came out with a pot, and I guess they cooked the eggs in the pot, and then they went back inside. And I could still hear her. We could still hear her yelling away inside the hutch there. So what was this? You know, there were only, you know, 4 or 5 people in that, 6 people in that area. You know, where was everybody else? You know, they obviously had enough accommodations for an entire company, and when it looked like it was set up like a base camp, it had the flag and everything. They hadn't taken the flag down overnight, but they had the flag flying, and you know, the ground was all nice and clear around. You know, it wasn't like a ville you'd normally see. It was obviously a base camp. So we observed that for a while, and the lieutenant was making some drawings, and we were gonna, you know, Moose was calling in the coordinates for this area, and we got as much information as we could, and then these 2 guys, these 2 soldiers, after they had breakfast, I guess, they walked along this trail a little bit further along, and they were holding hands. I remember the way that the Vietnamese did. You know, the men would often walk holding hands if they were friends. And they went over to the far end of the compound, and they had a machine gun set up there, and it was under thatch and camouflage, and it was a machine gun. Well, that finished off any trepidation that we might have had about what this was. You know, it was obviously a base camp, and so we settled in to see what was going on. And actually, we felt, you know, we went back to our camouflaged area, our area where we had been spent the night. It was concealed in the brush there, and we were pretty safe inside there. We felt, you know, no one could easily see us, and you know, it was a good spot to stay, and we became part of the village in a way. You know, we became part of the routine of the village, and we were thinking, well, we could maybe. Easy, we could do a prisoner snatch on these 2 guys, you know, that were you know, manning the machine gun, because they had a schedule. Every morning they went out there and then deployed the machine gun. Every evening they came back. Pretty routine. And in fact, we could have probably gone into the village, you know, on force and gotten everybody. You know, they didn't seem to have any arms or anything other than the machine gun, and that. You know, they weren't carrying rifles when they went out there. You know, it would have been an easy snatch for us. We gradually spent 1 or 2 days just observing, and you know, we felt like we were becoming part of the village. You know, it could have been affection for that old Papa-san who was being ordered around. So the next morning, we had been there, I think, 1 or 2 days, and 2 days. The next morning, we heard, we woke up to normal, you know, with the cock calling, and, you know, wanted to observe what was going on in the morning, so Truman and I went out there and we had our binoculars and we were looking at the village. We were only like 300 yards away from it, something like that. And we saw two soldiers come in from the trail that we had been followed, and they were armed to the teeth. They had AKs and they had pith helmets, and they would look like they meant business. And they went right up to the hooch there, and the mama-san, started babbling away again, and the old guy came out, and this time he's making a bigger fire, and the little kid came out with his basket, and he was running out to get some eggs, and the activity level went up like 4 or 5 times, and it was obvious that something big was happening, or something big was going to happen. And we heard some movement on the trail again, and sure enough, now this explains what happened. An entire troop of North Vietnamese comes marching in, not marching in, but straggling in. First 2, then 4, then 6, and they were all heading toward that central area there. And they were shucking their gear like we did when we got back to our hutch. They were taking off their equipment, and they were, I guess, getting ready to have some chicken. The kid was probably going to go out and get some chicken. Well, he never made it to get to the chicken because he spotted one of our team, in the brush behind, and he goes running out, leaping and crawling out in Vietnamese, and everybody grabbed their weapons, and we ran back to our group. We got to get out of here, man. And sure, so we just hightailed it out of there. We were heading into the swamp, and we called in for our helicopters to be extracted. Well, nobody was shooting at us, and they didn't probably know where we were, but we knew they were after us. And we made our way into the swamp, and made our way off that little island of where the village was, and made our way into the swamp. And we were moving, and we were calling in, "Hey, come on, get us, guys!" And the birds were waiting because they thought we were going to do a prisoner snatch. That was probably what the lieutenant had talked to them about. So they were on call, and they came in. They were on their way, they said, but it's going to take them maybe 20 minutes to get to us. And meanwhile, we're moving through this swamp. The water kept on getting deeper and deeper and deeper. At first, it was like knee deep, and then it kept on, up to our waist. And soon we were moving. It had gotten up almost to our chest level. And we're holding our rifles above our heads. We couldn't move any further without swimming and ditching our gear and trying to swim for it. We weren't sure exactly what was on the other side. The map, indicated a small swamp there and level ground behind it. But those maps, you couldn't base your life on those maps. Many of them were probably from the Vietnam era or the French Indochina War. I don't know, but the maps, they were okay, but they weren't great. Well, we heard the choppers come in. We popped smoke, and they came in. They couldn't land on on the water there like that. They might have been able to hover, I don't know. But they had the ladder, and they dumped the ladder, and it unfurled down out of the C-46. And we all grabbed onto the ladder, and the ones who got up there, got to it first, climbed up another 10 or 15 feet, And the ones down below, were hanging on to the bottom of the ladder, and the helicopter just took off. The C-46 just took off. And as soon as we were airborne, we could see flashes from the village that they were firing at the helicopter. They were firing at us, and we could see where the flashes were, and we were well out of range. I mean, there's no way we could have hit anything. We fired anyway, and the helicopter banked out of the way, and gunships came in right after that. And they were firing rockets at the Ville. We could see the village exploding in flames as the rockets hit. So that was that mission. That was the way that mission ended. And I still think of them, the mama-san and the kid, papa-san. Wonder what happened there. Did they make their way into some of those ditches that we saw that they had? Maybe they had tunnels they could go into, or maybe they didn't, and they were just destroyed by the rocket attack. And Truman never did get his flag. Thank God. Well, that was an interesting mission. We were basically living inside that base camp. We had stumbled right into the middle of it, and spent a couple days there. And you'd think you'd get, you'd think you'd be afraid constantly, always afraid, but after a while you can't maintain that fear. You just have to accept it, and you become inured to it. You don't. It just becomes a part of you. It gradually gets less and less. And I started to feel like we were part and parcel of the village. We were living in the village. We knew the area. We were familiar with this family or whatever they were, and it just was strange. It was a strange mission. If you like my story, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoy my videos. Thank you.